We humans have always worried. What do other people think about us? We're always so concerned. Do they think bad about us? Well, what did we do? What are we that somebody rejects us? Others have asked, well, what is love? Now, I typically don't like to talk about other people, like on YouTube or this or that, but there is one individual who talks about the importance of getting over our fears, of creating content, and urging us to create lots of content. And don't be afraid of what other people think of you. And that being a primary problem, he says, into why we don't create content. Well, maybe a lot of us don't create content or quote-unquote speak up or quote-unquote turn a blind eye is because we've observed that some people who do so get their head lopped off, or they get it thrown back in their face. Or shall we say, don't spit into the wind or it'll land back in your face, or, words to that effect. Don't stick your foot in your mouth. Why create content if the content is going to come back to haunt you, so to speak? We've seen this over and over and over again. We've even seen quote-unquote saints die by assassination, or presidents die by assassination over and over and over. And we say, well, why would I want to be the next one? By creating content. Why thus say anything? Why not just stick my head under the covers, or maybe in some circumstances hiding one's light under a bushel? Why? Well, there's a wonderful course creator and writer in general and thinker on courses, on knowledge, Danny Iney, I-N-Y, I believe is the name. He's Jewish. At one point, maybe now, still lives in Canada, spent some time in Israel. And he states that he has had certain views on the Israelis or others, on Jewish persons, and other matters. And he wishes to urge us, too, to speak up, but to do so respectfully. And of course, then, how to do that, if we even try and define the term, that's part of the issue, I think. What is even respect? Yes, I was looking through part of a book the other day, older book. Walter Anderson had wrote, Courage is a 4-letter word. And he had talked of how someone he knew, or himself too, saying that maybe we should do things because on average they have a better impact for mankind. And he went into specifics. Like if you have someone arrested, or you arrest somebody, or they end up in prison, that maybe the punishment can be draconian, but on average it's better for humanity. But when it comes to our words, when it comes to human actions or interactions, I think that's part of the rub here. And we say, well, I may help people on average with my words, but I may get a lot of blowback too. So is it worth it to others and even myself in the short term and long term? You might say, too, do we want to be a Bonhoeffer in Germany and die for our cause? Wasn't too comfortable or life expanding, maybe even optimal for humanity. Not quite sure. Don't know that much about Bonhoeffer. But getting back to this thing then, or topic of putting out lots of content, and are not supposedly doing so because we're afraid of what other people think of us. Well, maybe that's because we sense and have observed, we have some awareness that what other people think of us is sometimes accurate in terms of respect level not being up to snuff. In fact, my contention is many a president has been assassinated, many a leader, many a cause has had a lot of blowback because while certain truths were communicated, certain truths were communicated incorrectly, mistruths thus called disrespect. So on the one hand is helping, the other hand is slapping someone in the face, called disrespect, and hoping that the helping hand is doing more good than the slapping hand on the alternative, which is a curious thing then. Of course, we don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. Maybe that's mankind's problem. We don't know how to speak very respectfully yet. So we're helping with the one hand and slapping with the other, or more. We're thus what Gore Vidal was called by some an enigma, helping on certain issues and cursing at the same time, or insulting at the same time, some would say. What's the most overall beneficial solution? Perhaps it's not just to gut it through and create more content, but to work on ourselves to become more and more respectful so that we become more and more impactful yet. Less and less blowback for obvious reasons, because what we say is more truthful, hence more respectful. Isn't respect truth about certain aspects of people? In my mind, basically, how they got to be who they are and where they're going to head based on their constraints and resources, and having to follow the laws of the universe, cause and effect laws. To deny all that is to be disrespectful, I think, bottom line, and be subject to a duel in the past or something similar in the future. Lots of hate, or hate mail, or hate emails, or who knows what of that accord. And yes, of course, a bullet to the chest, possibly. So as I've observed, some politicians who did quite well for a while, and maybe not so well later, some great speakers, some great talk show hosts, some this, some that, maybe they had the courage to speak up, create lots of content, not worry about what other people think, because they were running ramshot over their fears or realities of what others were thinking and how long they're going to be able to continue to do this without massive blowback and massive criticism, massive turning away from them. Hence a flash in the pan at some point in time, like many are who were once great upon the scene. I might add an extreme example, including Hitler, a flash in the pan in Germany, wonderfully regarded by some, more than others in Germany, and yet the next day, one day, no longer the flash in the pan, but the war criminal who took, cyanide and a bullet to his head by his own means, and perhaps that of his family, too. One day flying high, the next day a war criminal, or a flash in the pan. So yes, don't be afraid to create content. Don't be afraid to stand up. Fight your fears of what other people think. But if the back of your mind is telling you what may well be true, that what you're really telling people is a helpful thing here, but a slap in the face there as per being insulting from a lack of proper respect or optimal respect, in turn what your words are or aren't, well then it seems to me this is quite problematic. Why urge us to run ramshad? Oh man, I can't even speak. Why urge us to run roughshod? There we go. Over our fears of what other people think, if sometimes what we're most concerned other people think about us is that we're being disrespectful sometimes. Maybe that just isn't being elucidated very much at present day. It is in a very few circles, but not widely across the board. Maybe what people are urging us to do is to drown out the voice that tells us in the back of our head, we're being disrespectful in some accord and ought to work on that before trying to help other people or sell something to make a buck, on the other hand. Seems to me thus, why try and put out tons of content and not worry about what our non-tribe is saying about us, if maybe what the non-tribe is sometimes saying more than anything is not just we're a thorn in their side of how they are doing something and pointing it out, but that we're being very disrespectful. This runs along the lines, too, I think, of claiming, oh, we're just being envied, when in fact maybe part of the factor is we're also being disrespectful in getting that as a comment, not just having superior this or that someone, quote, envies. Isn't that why then some are said to be full of it? And the person so-called full of it thinks that they are the best thing since Swiss cheese or sliced bread, failing to see that the sliced bread could be disrespectful in some manner of communication. My thoughts here then on pushing people to create lots of content and not worry what some will think, particularly your people not of your tribe, hoping that you're making a better overall impact.